Well, good morning. How's it going? Oh man, it is. It's actually coming up on close to 9 o'clock, and I've been up since about 5:30 or so. Yeah, it's been a busy morning already, and it's going to be a busy day for me today. I actually have a lot of things I'm doing right now. I've already had breakfast. I've been out to breakfast. I went to Bob Evans this morning. Got breakfast. Recording my video right now, and then I will upload that. I have a massage at 11, which means I need to leave out of here about 20 to 11 because they've got 2nd Street blocked off again for some shit, and it's going to be a mess getting out of here. So I need to go over to Lemoyne and have a massage from 11 to 12, which I can use because my back is killing me right now. I took a fall, which during derby practice on Thursday, which you wouldn't think would have been that bad, but it felt like I compressed my spine. Literally, I could just feel like everything compress when I went down, because I sort of just dropped straight down and I had my knee underneath me. So yeah, my back has been bothering me ever since then. It just twinged right there. So I'm hoping the woman who works on me is going to do a good job fixing that. I hope. And then when I'm done with that, I've got to drive 45 minutes to the south to Gettysburg to meet up with a friend that I haven't really seen in about 10 years. Used to be a close friend of mine when I lived back in Indiana, and we used to do a lot of gaming together and stuff like that. But he moved to Ohio, and now I'm out here in Pennsylvania. He's a big Civil War buff, so he's in Gettysburg this weekend because there's an event going on down there. And we're going to get together for lunch at 1. I'm hoping to kind of stretch that out and catch up on some stuff because, like I said, we haven't seen each other face to face in about 10 years. And then when that's done, then I'm going to drive over to York, which is about an hour east of Gettysburg. And I'm going to tell you, I'll have all my gear with me, so we're going to, me and my eager staff, I'm going to film their last bout of the season. York's last bout of the season. So I'll film that, and then when we're done there, I'll go to the after party for a little bit, have some tacos and have a drink and congratulate everybody on a good season, and tell them I'll see them on Monday. I imagine we'll have practice on Monday. So I'll see them on Monday, and then drive back up here and start downloading video. And I probably will not get back up here until about 10 p.m. or so. So I'm going to be out of the apartment for about 12 hours straight, which is not unusual. It's not an unusual thing for me to do this. So like I said, busy day. Geez. And my work is never done. And tomorrow I'll go work out a little bit. In case some of you hadn't caught my Facebook feed, because some of you are just not following me on Facebook. I find that difficult to believe, but I actually took the advice of a couple of people, our coach down in York and our head ref, and got a membership with Planet Fitness out in Camp Hill. So I'm going to actually try to get out there a couple of times a week to work on cardio and work on strength training. Depending on how my back feels, I'll do abs tomorrow for strength training, or I'll do shoulders. I figure the most important parts of my body I need to work on are my legs, which I already did the first night I went. I did calf raises, hip abductors, the whole thing. And then work on your core, which is your abs. You need that. If you want to keep that derby position and you want strength, you got to develop a good core, and then work on shoulders, because I figure most of my hitting is going to be in my shoulders. I don't have much in the way of hips. I'm trying. I'm getting actually better at it because we were practicing hitting Thursday night, and I was getting in with my hips a lot better than I have in the past. So I'll work on my shoulders. I figure when I start playing, I'm going to buy what they call a bum protector. It's essentially it's like a padded short that has extra padding in the butt and in the hips, so that you can take hits there or give hits and it won't hurt as much. And since I have kind of a bony set of hips and butt, that'll help. So I'll wear those during a game. But my shoulders, I'll probably be delivering a lot of hits with shoulders. And I want to work on those. And then on top of that, I figure a good 40 minutes of cardio, do 15 minutes to start, do my strength training, then come back and finish off with like 15-20 minutes of cardio at the end to cool out. So yeah, I have it all figured out. And then I may actually, like on Thursday nights when I go down for York practice, they have skating before our practice, and I may actually go down like an hour early and just skate for an hour. Just practice skating, just nothing but skating, just like going around in corners, going around in circles. One of the things we did Thursday night was we were on what we call the big track, which is the outside of the WFDA track, and you're actually like kind of on the outside of the outer ref line. It's right around 300 feet. I guessed that. I actually did the calculation yesterday, and it works out to 295 feet. So I was right. It's like 300 feet around if you're doing it. And we were doing speed relays. One person would go, and then when they would cross the finish line, the next person would go, and so forth and so on. And we had to do that 10 times. And the idea was to try to improve your time each time. I didn't. I think my best lap was like my second, where I did like a 20.4 seconds on 300 feet. And then my next best time was a 20.8, which was like my 7th lap. I really pushed myself to get around. And even the coach, Devour, I believe I did hear her say, "Way to push yourself, Cassidy." Because I did. I was still skating hard when I came across the finish line. And when I went to stop, I just wiped out. I couldn't get a good stop. I was trying to get down on one knee to slide to a stop. And I just wiped out. And yeah, that was it. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Actually, it was. It was fun because you got to work on your form. And each time was learning how to get around the big track better. It's not the same as skating on the WFDA track because you have shorter straights. Your turns are not as vicious. I mean, when we're doing a wide turn on the big track, your G-forces are nothing, whereas you're pulling about 2.5 Gs going through the apex on the WFDA. You can kind of figure out your time, and based on the time I was doing it, I was actually averaging about, I think it was around 12.4 seconds on the WFDA from a standing start, which is good. That means that once you actually get your speed going, you're probably doing like 12-second laps. I need to bring that down a second a lap. That was the one thing we didn't do during the speed relay was we did a standing start lap, but we didn't do a follow-up lap to see what our second time was. And that's really what I'm curious to see is if we had kept going and once we built up that speed, what would our second lap look like? Would it be around 11 seconds or so? Because that's the idea. You want to get up to speed and then maintain speed. It's not a matter of I can do 10-second laps for the first 17 laps. Big deal. If I'm doing 12-second laps, 12 and a half second laps on the last 10, I'm not going to get it. But we did figure out that from a standing start, I was doing 27 laps in about 5.5 minutes, which is right around right now my average. And I need to shave that 30 seconds off. As you can see, we're basically talking about shaving about 1 second and 1/3 off every lap. Sounds like it'd be easy. It's not, but I'm getting there. So that's my skating stuff. Writing stuff. Well, I was going to write last night. I didn't. I was tired. It's been a long week. I was really busy Friday too. And it's one of the reasons why I haven't been getting a lot of writing in, is because I am busy at work, and then I'm busy when I'm coming home at night. And even though I don't have practice that much, I'm checking my phone here, I'm checking the charging on it. I had, basically 3 team-related things going on this last week. Geez, roller derby takes up a lot of time. And it seems like when I get the time to actually write, I don't have that much time. So after I do this video while I'm uploading it, I'm going to work on this last scene in chapter 18 and hope to finish it off. I don't think it's going to take a lot. And that's one of the things I want to talk about now. Is one of the thing that was left off in the last excerpt was, I've got it right here in front of me so I can say it. Coraline mentioning to Annie, who had said that Carrie seemed bored because she's been stuck on the 3rd floor for most of the day and stuck in the hospital since she woke up primarily. And Coraline saying, that she's more than just a little bored. And Annie admits, yes, I know, she has depression. And this is a thing that's going to kind of pop up. We're going to start we're going to start talking about the fact in some of the chapters to come, we're going to start delving into a little of the kids' mental health. We already know Carrie's a freaking mess. He really is. I mean, one of the things I'm going to finish up here in this chapter is a discussion about Carrie's mental health, Carrie's depression, and how, it's fairly well known, at least to Coraline, that Carrie suffers from depression. Annie knows this too, and it's going to be related as to how Annie is aware of this, how Annie has known it, and how she's dealt with it. Carrie's had depression for a while, and a lot of it is due to, his environment at home. It sucks. We know this. We know his parents are a pain in the ass. And we know that they haven't really taken their son's feelings and mental issues into consideration when they spend their time berating his ass. So, Carrie's mental health is not always the best. It really isn't. And one of the things that Annie will point out is that Carrie tends to blow it off. He'll just say, well, I'm a bit moody today. Or she'll, when she'll say, you seem a little down, and he'll be like, yeah, I'm kind of moody, stuff like that. Whereas in reality, what he's dealing with is he's trying to learn how to cope with his depression. He's depressed. He has depression, possibly. Knowing how we've seen Carrie get really, really up and then really, really down, there's also the possibility, if he were to be diagnosed, that he may be bipolar. Gee, I wonder if there's anyone I know who has gone through a similar situation. But one of the things that Coraline will point out is that Carrie's depression is now being, exasperated by the fact that she now has all this estrogen running through her system. And that's one of the things that was brought up when I first started transitioning, the first time I went to see my HRT doctor. And you have to go through the pro and con list. And the pro, of course, is, well, you have estrogen and you'll begin developing, feminine features, and you get boobs, beebs, and stuff like that. Here's all the good stuff. Yeah, oh, yay, I get boobs. I'll get fat on my butt and my hips, and my skin will get soft. And yay, I like that. And then they get to the cons. Cons, of course, is you're going to be cold all the time. Yeah, I know that. And, you can get breast cancer because if you have that genetic disposition for breast cancer in your family, you can get breast cancer yourself because, boobs. Your boobs will try to kill you at some point. But one of the things right at the top of the list is if you suffer from depression, estrogen can make it worse. What a surprise. And that's because estrogen just tends to open all the doors. As I've said before, going on estrogen, it was like it just went in there and kicked down all my filters. You put up all these filters and all these gates and masks and stuff to kind of keep your depression or keep your mental illness hidden from the rest of the world. And then the minute you go on estrogen and it starts taking over in your system, and it just kind of goes through and says, nah, we're going to get rid of all this shit. And it just drops all your filters. So not only are you likely to show your emotions more and be more emotional, but it really amps up your mental issues, especially if you're suffering from depression. Like on a dime, you're like, boom. You just feel it. And this is one of the things that I've told several of my cis female friends, even some of my trans female friends too, who've just started on HRT and are like, why am I such a crying, blubbering mess? Oh, welcome to womanhood, bitch. But yeah, it's like when your hormones are just going crazy due to you're either having your period or you're ovulating or something like that, and it does make you more emotional. So it's like, tell these guys, tell these husbands of yours that this is totally legit. If they want to see what it's like, we can put you on HRT for 3 months and see how you like it, because it'll pump you up. It'll get you there. So that's what Carrie's going through right now. She has depression. She's been keeping it hidden, but now it's sort of like, well, here's the estrogen. Let's see what it does to you. And she's sinking into this huge funk. She's sinking into the well and doesn't know what to do. And she probably does. Carrie's really analytical. That's the thing. And one of the scenes in the next chapter, you'll see her discussing what she knows versus what she's feeling. And we'll even make a comment along the lines of, it's one thing to say you know all this stuff, it's another thing now to feel it. And that's what's happening with her depression. It was there. I mean, she's getting depressed because I'm stuck in this hole all the time, and I'm a girl, and I tried to transition back and I can't transition, and I don't know what it's going to do, and one of my parents have abandoned me, and oh, woe is me, and all this other shit. It's just piling up on her right now. And the estrogen, it has kicked down all her filters, so it's harder for her now to keep that in check. And she hasn't learned how to deal with that yet. You know, it took me a while. I mean, I still get really depressed. I'll get really sad. You know, I'll get feeling hopeless and then kind of like get out of it sometimes. But it takes you a while to learn how to deal with that. It's not easy. And that's one of the things that Carrie has to deal with. Carrie's, again, analytical. But this is one of those things that you just can't analyze away. This is one of those things that you have to work on. Just like with Annie saying, you know, I don't cry. Well, she doesn't cry to the public in general or even to her parents. But we know she has shed a few tears in front of Carrie. And you're probably going to find out, that there have been times when Annie has locked herself away and had, like, you know, a 2-minute cry to get it out of her system, which is one thing that does tend to happen when you're female, is like, you'll have one of the most intense crying jags in the world, and then 2 minutes later you're like, okay, let's see what's on TCM. Really, it really is. I don't know how many times I've done that, and I've had a lot of my other women friends tell me the same thing. They'll just cry for like 5 minutes straight, and it's like, okay, let's fix dinner. You know, you blow it out. Annie's going to have a few issues of her own too. I mean, both kids have already been in situations where they damn near died. It happened during their A-levels. It happened once to Annie. It's happened 3 times to Carrie. And Carrie also has a bit of guilt left over from their Kansas City adventure because he knows it. He made a mistake and they damn near died for it, you know, and that's something you're going to learn farther on down the line, that Carrie he still feels a bit guilty about the fact that if Annie hadn't popped up when she did and saved them, he would have been responsible for them all dying. You know, it's a bit of guilt that he's been hanging on to, and now it's kind of working on her too. But Annie is going to have her own situations. Annie, again, she had to save everybody in Kansas City. She did, with a broken arm and a concussion, and she was still able to get her shit together enough to craft magic that allowed them to live. And it took a lot out of her. She has a little adventure of her own coming up here at the same time that Carrie's going off on the Polar Express. And let's just say that it's not going to be an easy adventure. And there's probably going to be some difficulty involved in there, I would imagine. But as it goes along, Annie's going to have her own issues that she needs to deal with. You start throwing these kids into situations where life gets a little dangerous for them. And it's questionable how they're going to deal with it. I mean, sometimes adults can't deal with this stuff. PTSD is a real thing. You know, and adults come down with it when they're faced with situations where they've damn near died, or they thought they were going to die. So imagine you're, you know, a 14-year-old girl or a 12-year-old girl, and you're put in a situation where you have to save everybody in your team from people who are trying to kill you. And this is after you've actually killed someone. This is after you've thrown out a spell to kill someone. And you've done it just sort of nonchalantly because You've been training yourself for the last 3 years to be able to do this shit. And now you got your chance. And you put somebody down like it was no big shake. That's some hardcore shit for a 12-year-old kid. You gotta wonder why Harry Potter didn't have more PTSD. I mean, really, Harry did not have PTSD. He should have. Wizards and shit are trying to kill him left and right. He was kind of directly responsible for the death of Sedgwick. He was. I mean, let's face it. He didn't have to do the Triwizarding competition. All you had to do was, they say, okay, start. And you step into whatever the shit is that you're doing, and then you pop up and you go, I'm done. I'm finished last. That's it. It just said you had to compete. It didn't say you had to compete and try to win. I mean, the mermaid thing, yeah, he had to go and save his friends. But the rest of the shit, it was like, the maze, all he had to do was just step into the maze and go, nah, I'm done, and step back out. And the same thing with the dragon egg, is just like, I don't have to do this. Hey, there's a dragon there. Hey, see you around. It's just that sort of thing, And Harry never got PTSD. He had dreams, but he never had PTSD. So is one of the kids or both the kids going to come down with PTSD? We'll find out. One of the things that the Guardians and the Foundation per se have is great mental health plans. I mean, especially the Guardians. Once you start going out and working with them on a regular basis, you find that, particularly for the field ops, having your mental health checked at certain times is a necessity. They want to make certain that they're not sending crazy people out into the field. At the same time, one of the catch-22s that the Foundation has is they don't really want to force you into therapy. They don't want to force you into counseling. It has been stated before that if you want to go into counseling at the school, you have to ask for it. The school can't just say you have to go into counseling. They can suggest you go into counseling, at which point it's your decision as to whether you want to or not. At this point, Harry hasn't went into counseling. He keeps saying, I'm all right, I'm fine, I'm okay, don't worry about me. And the teachers kind of know differently. And he hasn't been faced with that choice yet, but it could be coming. Yeah, they have the Foundation has kind of a laissez-faire attitude toward that. It's like, well, we think you need counseling, but we really can't force it upon you. Although you will discover that there are ways, if you're a doctor who knows her way around the system, there are ways they can actually make you go into counseling, but they can't force it on you. That really is the thing. They can't force counseling on you, except in certain situations. Like, now the Guardians can do it. The Guardians basically have that as one of their bylaws, that if you are like a field operative of a certain level, you have to undergo, just unplugging my phone here. You have to undergo, excuse me, I'm charging up some shit here. Yay! If you are a Guardian operative of a certain level, you have to undergo mental health checks every so often. It's necessary. We don't hear about it, but there will be a passage somewhere in the future where you find out that even Helena, still today, has to go see her shrink on a regular basis. Even though she's not working in the field anymore, or very rarely, let's put it that way. And she is nothing more than the head sorceress and the Guardian liaison at Salem. part of the requirement for keeping her field operative license open is that she has to go see a shrink on a regular basis. It happens. Most of the time she's like, she'll go and check them out when she doesn't have class or on a weekend or something like that. But she does have regular mental health checks. And that's a requirement of employment. The minute she says, I don't feel like going to see my shrink, that's the day the guardians go, well, we're just suspending your license right now. We're suspending it. You're technically not a guardian anymore. So we'll get a chance to see that. We'll get a chance to find out just what sort of things can happen as far as mental health issues are concerned. And the kids, it's probably not a huge secret, but at some point in the future, the kids are going to have to take advantage of those mental health facilities. They just will. And when Kerry was having problems with his little dream in the B-level book, Coraline sort of alluded to the fact that I might have to send Kerry to a facility. And he knew what facility meant. They were going to ship him off to a mental health facility. They were going to ship him off to a mental health institute where, he'd probably be kept under restraints for a while. So he could get some sleep, even though he didn't want to dream and stuff like that. But yeah, Kerry would have had to gone off and go through what I went through at one time when I checked myself into a facility for 48 hours. One of the more interesting parts of my life. It was needed at the time. I don't know if I would ever do it again. I probably would if it were absolutely positively necessary. And at the time it was absolutely positively necessary because I was a freaking mess, let's put it that way. I was actually on a 48-hour suicide watch. So that's how bad it was. And there was a woman in there who was actually on a week-long suicide watch because she had already tried to kill herself. And once she got better at the hospital, she told me that she OD'd on a bunch of pills and she woke up and she was on a ventilator. That's how bad it was. Her breathing had nearly stopped and they had her on a ventilator. So when she woke up, she was being ventilated. And they pulled the tube out, and then 2 days later, and she said she was also in restraints. They had her wrists restrained. And they held her at the hospital for another 2 days. Apparently she had been in the hospital for nearly 48 hours unconscious and on a ventilator. And then they kept her for another 48 hours, and then they put her in the facility for a week-long watch. And she tended to stay to herself and didn't really communicate with anybody else. I just happened to be sitting next to her at one point and she started talking and was telling me all this. So yeah, there were a few of us that were in there on suicide watches. There were a few of us that were in there for just plain being nutty as hell. Put it bluntly. One girl was actually checked in there by her parents because she was bipolar and she was just swinging all over the place, she was becoming a risk not only to herself but to her parents, so they checked her in. And she was also one of two women who actually propositioned me for sex while we were in the facility. And the one girl, when she propositioned me, I said, yeah, you do realize that we're in a mental health institution and you don't want to be doing this. And she's like, oh, I don't mind. You don't seem that crazy. I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not. You want to have sex with me because I don't seem too crazy. Okay, yeah, that was one of those, like, do I take that as a compliment or what? You don't seem too crazy. Okay, thanks. Yeah, that was an experience. Let me tell you, that was definitely an experience, and it was one that I would not want to go through again, unless it was absolutely necessary. And I hope it never gets to be absolutely necessary again. So, and I hope it never gets to be absolutely necessary for my kids either. Although, I know their future, and it's not always going to be rosy. It's not going to be like Harry Potter gets married and has 3 kids, and they're all gingers and shit like that, and he has a hot wife and all this other stuff. Even though we now know that J.K. Rowling was like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have hooked him up with Ginny. Because let's face it, Ginny was like a groupie who marries a rock star. Is it love, or is it, I bagged the prize. That's the thing. Everybody was always saying, well, it should have been Harry and Hermione, because Hermione marrying Ron was like, where the hell did this shit come from? Where the hell did this come from? And even, and we know J.K. Rowling has kind of said, yeah, probably Harry and Hermione should have hooked up originally. But Ginny was always really weird, because it was always like, oh, I get to see Harry Potter. Oh, he was like a huge crush to her. And then when they got romantically involved, you had to wonder if this was like true love, or if this was Ginny going, wow, this is like the groupie's dream. I'm finally bagging the kid I've always wanted. Yay for me. And it is. You think about it and it's like, holy shit, she was a groupie. She was a Harry Potter groupie. Is she really marrying him for love, or is she marrying him because she was a Harry Potter groupie? So you don't really know. I don't really care. I think if Harry and Hermione had actually married, it would have been a disaster eventually, because they were both actually pretty competitive. And one of the things you could say about Hermione and Ron is that Hermione could go off on her own agenda, and Ron wouldn't give a shit one way or the other. And as we know, she eventually becomes the Minister of Magic. Whereas Ron is happy to be toiling away as an auteur, basically under Harry, who's covering their ass. But Harry becomes the head of the auteurs, and Hermione would have been the Minister of Magic. You kind of wonder if at some point they would have started out competing with one another, and it would have turned bad. We'll see. We know Annie's competitive, and we know Carrie likes to say he isn't competitive, but we all know, who's this both? Who am I talking to? We all know that Harry really is a lot more competitive. Harry, the fuck? Carrie really is a lot more competitive than he made himself out to be. And we discovered that when he started racing. It was just like, yeah, I'm happy being 5th. You're going to find out that's bullshit. He may have been happy he was 5th that first year, but boy, he's going to work his way up. But he is a lot more competitive than he makes out, and we'll discover that. So I've talked for almost 40 minutes now. We're coming up on the tail end of the 39 minutes and 40 seconds, so I got 20 seconds to ramble. So like I said, long day for me today. I got a lot to take care of. I have a lot to do. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope everything is going well, and I will speak with you soon, and I hope to have an excerpt out tomorrow. So take care. Bye.